loveliest time of the year is the spring. I do, don't you? Of course you do. But there's one thing that makes spring complete for me.
What's up, everybody? This is LA Knight, aka Lady Ash Knight of Bookcatalot, and I am here with my April-May TBR podcast. And now I realize that it is like the middle of April because life has been crazy hectic and I just haven't had time to get around to do this. And I realized that if I didn't start doing it whenever I had a chance to do it, instead of waiting for the proper time, quote unquote, then I would actually never get it done and I would get out of the habit of doing this, which is one of the reasons why I haven't posted a podcast in like 8 months. So, let's get on to it. So, I actually, because this is spanning like 6 weeks, this TBR, and also because I read a lot at work, this list is actually going to be pretty long, relatively speaking. I mean, I'm sure there are people who are like in middle school who have longer lists than me, but I don't know, because I don't know anyone in middle school anymore. So, I'm going to be reading the Adventurers Wanted series by M.L. Foreman. It's a middle grade series about this boy named Alex who sees a sign in a bookstore window that says Adventurers Wanted, and so he goes and somehow gets shanghaied into signing this contract, kind of like this contract that Bilbo signs at the beginning of The Hobbit, except this kid's like 15 and human and doesn't know magic exists, and he ends up going on an adventure very similar, actually, to what's in The Hobbit, where he's going to kill a dragon called Slathbog the Red. The first book in the series is called Slathbog's Gold, actually. He's going on this adventure to kill Slathbog the Red and get some of his treasure, and it's all, like, it's very derivative, but it seems, like, my roommate read it, and she said it seems actually really, really fun, and she's on, like, book 5. So, I figured I'd give it a chance. I'm going to be reading The City Sun, which I've actually tried reading, like, 3 times. Once I got it from my high school library, once I got it from the local library, and then once I actually got it, my mother-in-law bought it for me for my birthday, I think, or Christmas, a few years ago, and all 3 times I got to, like, page 50, and then life happened, and I never got around to finishing it, and I finally got the audiobook, and I have the actual book, but I just don't have time to read all the books that I want to read, like, in their actual hard copies, and audiobooks are totally the way to go, especially because I'm playing a lot of video games lately, and so I'm going to be reading that, or listening to that, via audiobook. I'm going to be listening to Loyalty in Death by J.D. Robb. That's, like, number 11, I think? Number 10 of the In Death series by J.D. Robb, aka Nora Roberts. It's really interesting, futuristic crime series about this cop named Eve Dallas and how she is a homicide detective, but in, like, the year 2059. And the books were first being written in, like, 1994, so, I mean, that's, like, a really big time gap. Now it's a little less of a time jump, but when they started when I was, like, 5 years old, so it was, like, 23 years ago. And they're really interesting. I have read Loyalty in Death before. I'm actually rereading the series because it's been long enough, and I've read enough books that I don't remember everything that's happening. I have read Loyalty in Death before, and I do remember that one of my favorite characters pops up in this book, so I'm kind of excited. And then, I forgot to tell you what a City Sun, the sun, I can talk. I forgot to tell you what The City Sun is about. The City Sun is about this girl named Beth who lives in London, and her best friend Parva, who also lives in London. Parva is Indian, I think. She's Muslim, but they don't tell you if she's from India or Pakistan. And while the majority of Muslims in that area live in Pakistan and not India, there are some that live in India, and they never actually tell you which one she's from. But and it's about these 2 girls who get wrapped up in this war between Mater Via, the goddess of London, and this, like, construction demon guy. He's like the evil embodiment of urban expansion. And they end up making friends with Mater Via's son, Phileas, who's basically the Prince of London, and they get sucked into this world where, like, railroad cars are actually monsters that come to life and race each other, and there are, like, these spiders that live in skyscrapers that, like, suck out people's voices, and there are, like, dancing nymph girls who live in streetlights and stuff, and it sounds really interesting, and I've been wanting to read it for, like, ever, because it basically sounds like a more up to date YA version of Neil Gaiman's. I'm sorry, I always pronounce his name wrong. Neil Gaiman's Neverwhere, which I really liked when I read it in high school. So I really want to read it, and everyone should read it too. I'm going to be reading A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas when it comes out in May, obviously, because I'm actually going to a signing, a panel and signing for Sarah on May 4th, and so my copy of the third ACOTAR book, I hate calling it that doesn't even make any sense, but my copy of the third ACOTAR book I really hope comes in before I have to go to the signing because I wanted to sign it. I'm going to be reading The Courage of Kat Campbell, which is the sequel to The Power of Poppy Pendle, which I am going to review sometime this month. It's this really cute middle grade book series about, the first book is about this witch named Poppy who doesn't want to be a witch. She wants to be a baker, and this causes like a whole lot of trauma. And then when her daughter is born in the second book, her daughter wants to be a witch, and Poppy's like, no, magic ruined my life. Oh my god, no. And they think it skipped a generation because magic apparently skips a generation most of the time. But then it turns out Kat actually really does have magic. And it's like, oh shit, what's going to happen now? Oh, for the record, I used to try not to swear when I did these, and I've given up now. I'm Mormon, and so I really should try harder. But I usually do these podcasts after I get home from work, which is why I haven't been doing them in a while because work's been crazy. And now work has gotten to the point that I don't really care anymore about anything when I get home. So I just don't have the energy to try not to swear. So anyway, so turns out Kat actually does have magic. It didn't skip a generation. She's just a late bloomer. And shit hits the fan because, oh shit, Kat's got magic. And then, oh double shit, this evil witch escapes from prison, and the only person who can stop her, apparently, is Kat. And normally I would think that was weird, but I'm pretty sure Harry Potter normalized the middle school wizard has a middle-aged antagonist, arch nemesis person, so that's not that weird. I'm trying to read Eye of the World, and for those of you who don't know, Eye of the World is basically, it's an epic quest fantasy of extreme length. It's, I think, 13 or 14 books, maybe even 15 books, and they're all like 1,000 words or 100,000 words or something. They're like, or what is the number? 1,000 pages. That's what I'm trying to say. They're all like, so basically like Game of Thrones size, but there's like 14 of them. I mean, and the first one came out in like 1991, and they're like the same style as the Lord of the Rings, except more girls. Not such a sausage fest. I am totally here for that. And that book I have tried to read like 4 or 5 times, and it's not that it's boring, it's just that stuff keeps happening, and I just never get around to finishing it. And I always stop at around the same place. And so I'm gonna stick it out this time, maybe. There's this book by Brina Jovanoff, who I'm kind of low-key in love with, called Fiendish, and it's about witches in the South, and it's magical realism, and it's about this girl who was cursed to be asleep with her eyes sewn shut in the basement of this house, and nobody's quite sure why, but it has something to do with this curse that's taking over their town. And normally, like, that kind of vague description would put me off, but Brina Jovanoff has 2 books that I really love, and she's only written 1 book so far that I didn't like, and so I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to read Furthermore by Tara Mafi. This is another one that I tried reading and got distracted by life, and so I'm going to try it again. And it's about this girl named Alice who has to go on a search for her father because he's been missing for like 2.5 years. And unfortunately, the only person who knows where her dad is this boy that just drives her batshit. And I feel really bad for her because that boy, even on the cover, he looks obnoxious. And then I'm going to be finishing, actually. I had to stop in the middle, so this counts as I'm going to finish it this month. Ivory and Bone by Julie Eschbau. And that is basically Pride and Prejudice, gender bent, and then set during the time of the cave people. And you guys are probably like, what? But yeah, and it actually totally works. When I was reading it, the first half of it, I was like, oh my god. And like, every time something would happen, clips of the A&E version of Pride and Prejudice with Jennifer Ely and Colin Firth would pop into my head. Like, the main character, who is supposed to be Elizabeth, except it's a dude, when the brother goes to visit the girl that he's in love with, and it doesn't come home, and they're like, oh, maybe he got sick, and then the main character's like, I'm gonna go and visit my brother and make sure he's okay, and don't worry, I'll just walk. I'm not gonna take the easy way there. I'm gonna walk. And the mom's like, you can't walk. You'll be filthy when you get there. And that totally reminded me of in the A&E version of Pride and Prejudice when Jane, Elizabeth's sister, goes to visit the guy that she likes and then gets sick because she went in the rain. And so they find out that she's sick, and so Elizabeth is like, I'm going to go visit her. And her dad's like, I'll go get you the carriage. And Elizabeth is like, no, I'm just going to, I'm going to walk. It's not that far. And her mom's like, walk 3 miles and all that dash. You want to be fit to be seen. And Elizabeth is like, well, I'll be fit to see Jane, which is all I want. And it's just, every time something like that happens, I'm like, oh, I know where that's from. And so, like, I'm really excited to finish this book. I don't know why I keep having trouble finishing books. Oh my god. I think it's because I'm an adult and adulthood sucks. I'm going to try to read The Keeper of the Mist by Rachel Neumeyer. And all I know about this book is that this girl who's the bastard daughter of the lord of her region finds out that she inherited the title over her 3 legitimately born half-brothers because of magical reasons. And the magical protections that are protecting their kingdom from other kingdoms are slowly wearing away, and she doesn't know how to fix that, but everyone thinks that she knows how to fix it. And if she can't fix it, they're probably going to kill her. I don't know if they will or not, but they probably will. Also, the cover's really pretty, and it has rainbow smoke on it. I'm going to try to read Kushiel's Avatar by Jacqueline Carey. The thing about the Kushiel series by Jacqueline Carey is the first one is Kushiel's Dart, and it's basically the first 3 books in the series because it's a 9-book series with 3 trilogies in it that make up the entire series. And the Kushiel's Avatar is book 3 of the first trilogy. And the first trilogy is about this hooker, and I say hooker like she's not like a streetwalker hooker, like a courtesan hooker, who's also trained to be a spy, and she's actually the best friend of the queen, but she's also a hooker, and she uses her hooker skills to like glean information from people. And the thing is, these books are so big and so detailed that you can't like read one and then wait a year and then read another one. If you do that, you won't remember anything that happened. I waited maybe like a month between the first and the second book, and I was like, wait, who's that again? When did that happen? What is that about? I don't know what's going on. And so I had to actually skim the first book again to figure out what was going on. And that was actually really annoying because that book is like super gihugic. I'm going to be reading The Mammoth Hunters by Jean M. Auel. She wrote The Clan of the Cave Bear, which was a movie with Daryl Hannah, which I actually recently saw. Not as good as the book in some ways. Better than the book in other ways. But it's about this girl named Ayla, who's a Cro-Magnon human, who ends up being raised from childhood by Neanderthals. And then at the end of the first book, she ends up having to go off and do a thing. And she's not with the Neanderthals anymore. And in The Mammoth Hunters is when she gets adopted by humans. Again, not the clan that she was born from, though, and she gets adopted by this clan of mammoth hunters. And there's a lot of romantic drama I hear in this book, more so than in the other books, and I don't know how I feel about that, because I specifically do not read romances anymore, category romances, because I do not like romantic drama. If it could be resolved with communication, and it's still a problem, like 200 pages into the book, then I kind of want to stab you guys. Not you guys, my listeners, you guys, the protagonists. I had this problem with Insurgent by Veronica Roth. I'll talk about that at a later date. I'm going to be reading The Night Parade by Catherine Takari, which is about this girl in Japan who, on a dare, rings the bell at her family shrine on Obon, which is like Japanese Halloween, and summons up the Night Parade of 1,000 demons. And also activates a death curse, and like people's gonna die and things are gonna go crazy. It's basically like a Miyazaki movie. This is how it's been described to me. It's like a Miyazaki movie as a book, and I'm really excited because I love those movies. I'm gonna be reading The Queen of the Tearling by Erica Johansson. I literally know almost nothing about this book except that the main character is the queen, but she's been raised in seclusion her entire life until she could take the throne. And I also know that the author got a 7-figure deal from whatever publisher published this book based solely on the first book, and that's a lot. I don't know if you guys know, 7 figures, that's at least $1 million. And it's a debut novel. That is almost unheard of. I don't know how she pulled that off, but I read about it in an article in a publishing website that publishes articles about stuff like that. And they were like, yeah, you got to hear about this book because this is what happened and this is what she got. And I'm like, who is this person that she did this? And so I'm really excited to read this book because I want to know what's the big deal is, why it's worth $1 million. And then I've started reading Sword Art Online, the light novels, not the manga, because there's things in the manga that are not in the novels or the anime, and I really like the first arc of the anime. And the first half of the second arc of the anime, kind of, sort of. There's things in it I don't like, but I like the first half of the season 1 of the anime Sword Art Online, and so I decided to read the novels, and I've already read volumes 1 and 3. You're probably wondering where volume 2 is. You actually don't need to read volume 2 when you read volume 3, because volume 2 takes place during volume 1, and it's stuff that I already know about because it's in the anime, and also my copy of volume 2 was not shipped on time, and I didn't feel like waiting. So now I'm going to be reading volume 4, which is Sword Art Online Fairy Dance. Volume 3 is also called Fairy Dance. And then because these books are like super short, I'm going to be reading Sword Art Online 5 and 6, which are both called Phantom Bullet. I don't know why they're both called that, but and then Sword Art Online 7, which is called Mother's Rosario. I'm also going to be going back and forth between those books and Sword Art Online number 8, which is called Early and Late, because that book has 3 short stories in it from 3 different arcs. So I have to actually read the 3 arcs in total and then read the short stories. I'm going to be reading Uprooted by Naomi Novik. I've been reading her Temeraire series, and I really like them, so I would really like to see what she does with this. Supposedly it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but I'm not sure. Like, I can't tell because, like, the girl's locked in a tower, and there's wizards, and I don't know. And, like, he's called the dragon. I'm not sure what's going on. But I like her other books, so I don't know why I wouldn't like this one. Definitely going to be reading Winter Song by S.J. Jones, because it is a retelling of The Labyrinth, but set in Bavaria and using Germanic folklore, which I really am like a total sucker for folklore. But it's a retelling of The Labyrinth. Like, who doesn't want that? Seriously. And I read an excerpt where it described the Goblin King that is in this book, and he sounds just like Jareth, as played by David Bowie, and I am 100% here for that. And then I'm going to be reading The Wizard of London by Mercedes Lackey. That's book 4 in the Elemental Mages. And I really like those books. Sort of. I mean, like, they have a really special place in my heart, but when I review them, you will see why I say sort of. And then if I finish that one, I'm going to be reading Reserved for the Cat, which is the next one after The Wizard of London. And these books are Victorian era magical fantasies, but that are based on fairy tales. And The Wizard of London is based on the Snow Queen, and Reserved for the Cat is based on Puss in Boots. And I've read them before. I read them in high school. I never finished The Wizard of London because at the time I thought it was boring. But I actually have renewed interest in the series now, so now that I'm older, I'm wondering if maybe my opinion will change. And then lastly, I'm going to be reading Worlds of Ink and Shadow by Lena Coakley, and that sounds really exciting because that is about, oh my gosh, let's see if I can get all of them. Anne, Emily, Charlotte, and Branwell Bronte. Now, I don't know if you guys know, Emily Bronte wrote Wuthering Heights, and Charlotte Bronte wrote Jane Eyre, and then Anne Bronte wrote something like The Grey Lady? Or something, or Grey Susan? I don't know, it's something that isn't as well known as those other 2 works. But it's about the 4 Bronte siblings when they were younger, and it's a fantasy, it's a dark fantasy. Apparently, the worlds that they created when they were kids, they somehow gained the ability to bring them to life as like an alternate dimension, and now this power is getting out of control. And the thing is, I don't know if you guys have read Emily and Charlotte Bronte, you know that their works are filled with crazy, hot but crazy dudes and damsels in distress and like typical gothic horror damsel danger things, and those people do not need to be coming to life. Like, Heathcliff can stay on the pages of Wuthering Heights with his crazy obsessive romantic inclinations and not pop up in the real world. I am totally okay with that. So those are like the things that I'm going to be reading in the next 6 to 7 weeks. I will let you know if I manage to get all those finished. And as I finish them, I will try to review them as I finish them, because it's a lot easier to review a book when it's fresh in my mind instead of me having to read off of my notes, which is what I had to do with Throne of Glass and Daughter of Smoke and Bone. And while I like the way those reviews turned out, it's still just easier just to do it off the cuff. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast, and I hope that the books that I mentioned intrigue you. And if you have any questions, or you want to know more about a particular book, or you want to let me know what you guys are reading, go ahead and comment below. And, go ahead and like and subscribe, and I will talk to you guys in the next podcast. Have a great day. Bye!